and I was told I wasn't clever enough. And I wish I would have pushed a bit more. I wish I would have said, no, I am clever. I am going to go for this. For such a long time, I was given free rein to just do. If I had a creative idea, they'd let me run with it. I was waking up crying and I was going to bed crying. It was awful. My role no longer involved working creatively. If you're creating something, it is therapy. It is just absolutely beautiful and has a wonderful effect on your mental health. My business was my lifeline, and the fact that it was a creative one, it gave me an outlet. And I think some of my best writing for clients and for myself came out of that time, because I was able to just put everything into it because I needed an outlet.
Hi, I'm Claire, founder of Creativity Found, a community for creative learners and educators, connecting adults who want to find a creative outlet with the artists and crafters who can help them do so with workshops, courses, online events and kits. For this podcast, I chat with people who have found or refound their creativity as adults. We explore their childhood experiences of the arts, discuss how they came to the artistic practices they now love, and consider the barriers they may have experienced between the two. We'll also explore what it is that people value and gain from their newfound artistic pursuits, and how their creative lives enrich their practical, necessary, everyday lives. For this episode, I'm speaking with Jo Watson, who has always brought creativity into her career roles in teaching and sports education, in schools, colleges, prisons, and in Grenada in the Caribbean. More recently, she's concentrated on her way with words and has a unique outlook on the similarities between starting a business and bringing up a baby. Hi, Jo.
Hello, Claire. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're very welcome.
And congratulations on your award, by the way, because I've not spoken to you since you became this celebrity, this award-winning podcaster.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, very proud.
Thank you. You have worked as a teacher and for a football club, more about that later, but have now found your own creative style, which you use professionally. What is it you do?
I'm a copywriter, and nobody ever knows what that means, including my mother, despite the fact I've been doing this professionally for about 7 or 8 years. It basically means I write for businesses. So whenever you see any marketing materials out there, or a fantastic advert, or even just some content that's written on a website, chances are they've had a skilled copywriter involved to make sure that the messaging is nice and memorable and exciting and engaging and causes people to buy or go out and take action and do something. So that's what I do. It's nothing to do with law, as a lot of people think it is. They think I can help them with copyright law. I really can't. But I'm also writing my own book as well. And I know everyone's writing their own book these days, but given the fact that I am a writer, it just makes sense that I do go down that route and put something book-like together. So I've got a business / parenting book on the go. So hopefully that'll go well.
Brilliant. How exciting. Everybody's doing podcasts as well at the moment. Yes.
Yeah, and the thing is, it becomes so saturated, but you know yourself that you're keeping the standards high and you're doing it as it should be done. And I think we have to do that in any creative industry we find ourselves in. We've got to make sure we don't fall to the generic level that is out there. So, you know, your podcast is just going to be A1 every single time. I know that this book is going to be nothing short of perfect, because I've got to treat myself like a client. And think, you know, if someone was paying me for this, would I be happy for that to go out there? So, yeah, we keep the standards high, Claire, or we try to.
That is a really good point. Well made. What were your creative experiences like as a child, both at home and in education?
I was very quiet at school, so I wasn't creative in an open and confident sense. I wasn't thrust onto the stage or anything like that, but I did love to write. And everyone always says, oh, what stories did you write about? I didn't write stories, though. No doubt I probably did. But I liked things that were a little bit edgier. So I wrote a lot of poems, and from what I recall and from what people tell me, including my head teacher, who I'm still in contact with, and my mum and dad and relatives who kept copies of things, they were quite dark and quite darkly funny. So it seems that this sense of humor that I try to get across in my work as a copywriter for other people, it seems it was always there, or trying to come out. So yes, I'd write these poems that you'd probably look at them and think, "Oh, that's brilliant," and then you'd think, "Oh my god, she was 9. That's a bit worrying." But you know what? I'm okay. I'm not in prison. I've not been sued for anything. I've not got myself into trouble. But I was just quite edgy and subversive, I guess. But I also liked writing letters, and I remember going for like a school council position and getting up and having to deliver this manifesto that I'd put together myself. So I loved all that. I loved all the writing that I felt I could be creative with, but it would actually serve a purpose as well. It would get me something that I wanted or I needed. That's pretty much what I did through primary and secondary, and I was quite well known for it, but of course, all the cool kids just thought I was a geek. But I was a bit of a star at primary with that kind of thing, but then I think in secondary, I was a bit more middle of the road. College, I underperformed significantly. It just got worse, I think, Claire, as things went on, because I wasn't channeling what I was good at either. So, for example, I wanted to be a lawyer by the time I got to university level, and I was told I wasn't clever enough, and I wish I would have pushed a bit more. I wish I would have said, "No, I am clever. I am gonna go for this," but I just kind of believed that I wasn't clever enough. And I did English language, and whilst you would think that would help me massively as a copywriter, it doesn't. It was studying someone else's English, essentially, and I want it to be writing my own. I want it to be more creative with mine, seeing as I wasn't clever enough to be at that lawyer. So I feel like I kind of settled and coasted, and if I was to have my time again, I don't think I'd go to university, so which is a controversial statement.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's fair enough. And at a time, and it still is today, it was encouraged that that would what you would do, and it's kind of expected if you're of a certain academic level that you go to university regardless.
Yeah.
As you said, you did English language. How did you come to be a teacher?
I realised in the middle of my English language degree that it wasn't going to get me anywhere as a degree, and that was 20 years ago. Now today it's even worse. You come out with a degree now, you fit for nothing. Really, you need to have so much more experience. You need to have done internships. You need to have so much volunteering under your belt. That degree is just not enough. And I knew at the time it wasn't going to get me anywhere, because I thought, well, I might be a journalist. And I got told, "Oh, well, no, you have to do a degree in actual journalism for that." And of course, by that time, it was too late. So I graduated unenthused, really, and I started working for a play scheme over the summer, just because it was close to my house, or close to my mum and dad's house, really. And it was, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it was cash in hand. And when you're 21, that's what you want. So I was working for this play scheme, and I thought, despite never having had an interest in working with kids and not really liking kids very much, I was very good at it. It seemed I had this ability to let the kids have a great time, but I was also very good with structuring activities so that they learn and they'd achieve and in turn feel good about themselves. So that same employer just said to me, "Right, well, you're going to go into teaching." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And he said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I thought, well, that's a great question, because I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, "I want you to get into teaching. I've got you an interview at a school to be a teaching assistant. You're going in on Monday." I thought, right, fine. Went and did it. And this is going to sound awful, but when I was in there as a TA, I'm a teaching assistant, I was thinking, I could do this better. And I know that's an awful thing to say, but I think we've all done things, we've all been in some kind of scenario where we thought, "Oh, I'd do that differently. I'd do it better. I've got a different way of doing this that'll be more effective." So I thought, well, maybe teaching is for me. So I applied, I got in, I loved my studies. I loved my teacher training studies. I was told that it was that intense you wouldn't be able to work whilst you were studying, but I did. I had a job as well, and I proved that I was a grafter, and I got it all done. And then I went into teaching. Loved my first year. It was excellent. I was at a lovely little rural primary school. And then I went into a totally different school altogether for my second year and pretty much jacked the profession in after that. It was awful. I just realized how much it's not about the kids, sadly, and it's not about education. It's about box ticking, bureaucracy, and politics. And they are three things that are about as far removed as creative as I can think, Claire.
I know I've certainly heard from other people it can be difficult to be creative within your teaching itself, within those stipulations of curriculum and Ofsted and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah, it was, but I've got to be honest though, Ofsted wasn't really the problem for me. Now I had an Ofsted inspector come in and she loved my session. And yet I remember the head teacher at the time who was also in at the same time, which I thought was awful, by the way. I thought, how dare you send an Ofsted inspector in, which I know you've got to let them, you can't say no. But I was so annoyed that the head teacher came in as well and sat at the back with the Ofsted inspector. That was massive pressure. And I was still such a young teacher as well. So I hated that, but that was pretty much his style. He was, in fact, a massive bully. He ended up getting struck off about a year later. So that made me feel a lot better about things. Although this Ofsted inspector had said my session was great, my record keeping was fantastic, all good stuff, my head teacher did not like it one bit. And he didn't like the creativity because I would do things in the observed session and just in general where I'd get the kids out and about, or I'd say, right, we're going in the hall, or we're going out onto the field, we're going to go and have a bit of maths in, outside of the classroom, or we're going to do a bit of English across the curriculum, walking around somewhere else. And he didn't like that because he believed that all education should be about recording things in books. So having calculations, having sentences. He didn't believe in the power of a creative education or an expressive one, such as arts and music and, PE even. He just didn't believe in it at all. And it just made for a very, very toxic workplace where the children were just little exam factories.
Oh,
And it was horrible, absolutely horrible, because there was some real talent there that we could have explored or given those less academic children the chance to try and shine at something. And he just took it all away. It was horrendous. But I'm glad in a way, because had he not been so dreadful in stifling creativity of his kids and of me as a professional, I may still well be in teaching, just coasting and just getting by, and I'd hate
yeah.
that, I think.
Yeah, it's sad for the children, and as we know, different children learn in different ways. So it's a shame that in some places you can't bring that variety in. So speaking of variety, how did football come into play?
Oh God, a question I ask myself almost daily, Claire, because I've got no idea at all, because I hated football. I hated watching it. I hated playing it. I was always more than happy for my kids to play it, of course. But I'll just tell you a funny story about it. In my first teaching placement, the teacher who was taking the five-a-side kids in year six to the weekly five-a-side games after school, it was a lady, and she was ill, so I had to step in and take over. And my husband was laughing at me because he came along to support, and he said, I'll help you, because he was a football coach at the time. And he said, I'll come along and help you. And he was like trying to give them proper tactics and, develop their sportsmanship and give them some ideas to sharpen up their football. And I was just there going, score more goals. They've scored more goals than you, so you're not going to win. Go back and score more goals than them. And he was like, Joe, that's not a tactic. And I was like, yeah, but it makes sense, doesn't it? They're losing. They need not to be, Go and score more goals and you'll be fine. And they won. And to that day, I've just like held it over him that, you know what, you're wasting your time with all this coaching and nurturing, Steve, because you just need to tell them to score more goals. And if that's all they need, just go out and win. Whatever you're doing now that isn't working, change it. So that was my experience of football. So not exactly the most professional or skilled or filled with expertise. But when I was in that second teaching year, and it was so horrendous, like I said, but it got me to a point where I thought I'm leaving and I don't want to be in teaching anymore. He'd killed any joy that was left in it for me. And a friend at the time was working at a professional football club, and she said, well, the club I'm at have an education department. Why don't you just come and have a look around and see if it might work for you? So I called up, I had a look round, I quite liked it. I liked the idea that they had a community education program because I didn't know that football clubs did that. And it turns out that the club I was at was kind of a pioneer for it, really. And it'd surprise you because it isn't one of the big names at all. It really wasn't. But they were doing so much with education. And I thought, I like this. I really do like it. So I applied, I got an interview, and they said, you haven't got it, but we liked you and we think you can bring a lot to a role here. So we're going to create a role for you, which was wonderful to hear. So, yeah, so I ended up working there for about 6 or 7 years. And it was out in the community. So I'd go out into schools and do sports related curriculum work with the kids. So it might be kids who are failing in English or not reaching their potential in English, but we could infuse them through sport and the power of the football club itself, because it was a very well supported club within the town that it was based in. So it really served as a hook. And then on a standard day, we would get schools coming from all over the country to spend a day with us, with our teachers, on our facility, which was actually inside the stadium. And they could do anything. We'd get nursery kids coming in to do artwork, and we'd get A-level kids coming in to do business studies days where they'd meet with the CEO of the club or the head of HR, and they'd, do case studies about things that have happened in the actual club. So it was all this real life learning. It was just the definition of a creative education, and I thrived there. I really did. I loved it, Claire. It was so much fun working in so many different subjects with different school age children, kids from different backgrounds and abilities. It was amazing. And to be honest, the only reason I left there was because I got a promotion and then sadly realized that if you're a woman at a senior level in professional football, you're not going to have a very nice time. And so I did it for a year to get a year's leadership and management under my belt. But no, I had to go. Women were not respected. They're still not in professional football. I'm very, very sad to say. So I just didn't want to stay there. I got told by another woman in leadership there who said, grow a thick skin, just be more male in your thinking. And I thought, I don't want to be. I don't want to grow a thick skin. I'm perfectly happy with the one I'm in. I don't want to change who I am for the sake of this job. I want to be me. So I just left, and that's when I started setting up my own business as a copywriter. I just thought, what am I good at? What do people say I'm good at? What skill have I always used that's always led to a result in getting something? So funding or some kind of response from someone that to give me or wherever I was working, a positive outcome. I thought I'm good at writing, and so I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to hang up my teaching super cape and and go do my own thing. So that's pretty much it. But all the way through it, Claire, I had no idea about football at all. I could not have told you any of the players. I couldn't tell you any of the rules. Or I just couldn't. I was dreadful. But I said that at the interview. When they said, have you got any questions? I said, yeah, I know nothing about football. Will that be a problem? And they said, at least you're honest.
Yeah. But it's about the engagement, isn't it? And it's exactly what you were talking about when you were at the school. engaging the different pupils in different ways, in creative ways. And sport is a creative way, because it's not there as, you know, you wouldn't normally think to use sport in your English lesson, but it's those ways of engaging the different elements, different age groups, the different educational standards and the levels and the subjects and stuff.
Absolutely. There's loads. I mean, once you have one idea to link how a football match can tie into helping someone with their English GCSE, it all starts flowing and you think of loads of things you can do. It's so much fun. And like I said, for such a long time I was given free rein to just do. If I had a creative idea, they'd let me run with it. And it saw me actually before I got promoted and was working under a different person and all of that. Before all that, I'd said, I want to go work in prisons. I said, I want to go run a project in prisons, and they let me. And I also said, I wanted to go and work with one of our players in his charity. I wanted to set up an education arm for his charity. And within a month, I found myself on the beautiful Caribbean island of Grenada, setting up a teacher training program. And that
Oh
was just,
my, Joe.
I know, it was amazing. It was a very big learning curve in the terms of, you don't ask, you don't get. And I just, yeah, I went up to the player in question at an event and said, his name's Jason Roberts. He's absolutely lovely. He's got a fantastic foundation. And I said, do you do any education work in your community foundation? And he went, no. And he said, in fact, over in Grenada, where I'm from, you don't even have to be a qualified teacher. So a lot of people don't have the skills to be a teacher over there. And I said, I can put something together. I'll create a teacher training and development program. And so, yeah, I went out there.
Creativityfound.co.uk is the place to go to find workshops, courses, supplies, kits and books to help you get creative. So if you're looking for your own Creativity Found experience, go have a browse to see what's on offer so far. And if you can help adults to find their new creative passion, please get in touch on social media or through the contact details on the website. Going back to having been promoted and being in quite a dire position then, and then you've just quite happily said, so that's when I went off and did copywriting. Was that what it was like? You just went, oh yes, now I'm going to go and do this?
Well, I wish I could say, yes, it was, and thus inspire all of your listeners to think, yeah, I don't like my job. I'm just going to quit and go and do something. Don't do that. It's much better to take a more staggered approach to it. So what I did is, by the end of that year in management, I was waking up crying and I was going to bed crying. It was awful. My role no longer involved working creatively, and everything was just political and horrible and sexist and just awful. So I did the unthinkable and I quit. Now, I would have always been the person that would say you never quit something unless you've got something else lined up, because I do believe that is the sensible thing to do. But I did. I just quit. I had nothing else and I quit. And then I went on holiday because I thought, right, I've been too depressed to spend any of the money I've earned. So I'm going to go on a nice holiday. We went to a lovely hotel in the Canaries and it was beautiful. And when I was there, I thought I might look at setting up a business, because my husband had been working in his own business since he graduated uni. So he had loads of experience of what it was like to set up, to run and to develop a business. So I had a good person there to kind of help me, but I wasn't ready to just go, right, I'm a businesswoman. Let's see how I get on. So I started looking for other jobs that I could have just to balance things out so that I could build the business, but I'd also have an income coming in as well. Someone I knew through my former job in football put me in contact with someone who was setting up a business of their own in sports education, which, hello, I just spent the last 6 or 7 years in. He was setting up his own business. He needed someone to head up education. It really was the perfect role for me. So my plan was, right, I'm going to do this for a few years and I'm going to build my business alongside. And that's what I did. I think I did 3 years, loved every minute of it. But every time I did something good or did something well, or we got funding, or we achieved results or targets, or we got a good observation or whatever, my boss would always book a holiday or turn up in a new car or just go off for the afternoon and play golf. And I thought, well, that's his right because that's his business and he's enjoying the spoils. And I thought, well, I want that for myself. The time is now for me to take what I've built in the background and go full on with it. I'm going to do it because if I can be successful for someone else's business, I know I can be successful for mine if I give it all the time and all the focus that it needs. So I was scared, but I left. I thought, I'm going to do this. I feel like I'm in a good place. I'd built a portfolio, I'd built a reputation, I already had a client base, and everything was fantastic for about 3 weeks. And then I got really sick and I thought, "Oh god, what's wrong?" I was also, not many people know this, I was also fostering teenagers at the time. I don't know why. I clearly felt that quitting my job and trying to start a business just wasn't enough of a challenge, Claire. So I was a foster carer for teenagers at the time, which was really tough. And I honestly thought I was sick because of the stress of that. But it turns out I was pregnant. And so I spent the first 9 months of my business throwing up every day, essentially, because I had that joyous morning sickness that didn't stop in the morning and didn't go after the first trimester. I had it all day, every day for about eight, maybe 9 months. I'll never let my child forget what she put me through with that.
Quite right too.
But I made it work, Claire, because I had no choice. I thought, well, I'm pregnant. We do want a child. We didn't plan on it at this point, but I also want this business, and I can't go back now. No one's going to employ me. I have to see this through. So the business is still alive, 5 years on. The baby is still alive 5 years on. I'm still alive 5 years on. And honestly, I couldn't be happier. It did on paper, it was dreadful, everything happening all at that time, but in reality, I think it's worked for the best. I really do.
That's brilliant. Absolutely perfect. So, what do you think makes you a good copywriter? Because you obviously are, you're making a success of this. And how does that translate to starting to write more for yourself, which you mentioned you were doing at the beginning?
So yeah, like I said, I'd always enjoyed writing for myself, especially if I felt it was going to lead to an outcome. So I remember I used to write job application letters for people when I was in high school. And so, members of my family would go and get a job, and I'd see how happy they were that they'd got an interview off the back of this letter that I'd written for them that helped them sell themselves. Because when we're writing our own stuff, we struggle to sell ourselves. We don't like it. We're British. We don't like to boast. We don't like to brag too much. I know on social media there's a lot of people proving exactly the opposite right now, but yeah, we're just not very good generally at selling ourselves. And so I'd found that I was good at finding all the good in people and the things they were good at and turning it into this thing that would sell them on paper. And I saw people getting jobs. I was writing letters of complaint for people, like, they'd been on a holiday and something had gone wrong. And I was writing letters to the holiday companies, and these people were getting vouchers and free holidays back in return. And I started seeing the power of language and what it could do, what a few well chosen words and a few well chosen and structured paragraphs could do to have power and influence to affect a change or to affect an action that someone would make to give you something that you wanted or needed. So I was fascinated by that, and I knew I was good at it. I was dreadful at a lot of things, but I was really good at that. I was happy to be a geek. So I think because I've always done it, I've always enjoyed it, it meant that I wasn't having to find a skill and hone it to form this business. I was just doing something that I was already doing anyway. It's just that now I was getting paid for it. And I think what makes me successful with it now is that I'm not afraid to be a bit edgy. I don't want people paying me their hard earned cash for me to churn out something that any copywriter could do. I don't want them to look at it and go, "Oh, that's well written." I want them to look at it and go, "Wow, that made me feel something," or "That made me want to do something." So I get a lot of my clients saying, "Oh my God, I've just read what you've written for my website. I want to buy my own stuff now." It's lovely. It's lovely that I can give that edge. I can add that personality into what people are doing, and I can just put people in a great position to sell themselves and to sell their products and services, so that they can go off and build a great business the way I hopefully have. So it's just a lot of fun. It really is. Sometimes I sit there and think, I can't believe I get paid for this. So it's nice. I feel like I've worked hard to get here, but now I'm here. I'm enjoying it, and I'm not afraid to say so.
Brilliant. Tell me a bit more about the book that you're writing and how you manage your time between writing for clients and writing your book.
Oh, okay. Well, the book, it's called Why Running Your Business is Child's Play. And it's kind of a parenting book, it's kind of a business book, but overall, I've written it just because I think it's gonna be a little bit of fun for anyone who, at some point in their life, has been where I was, in the sense that they were running a business or trying to set up a business, and they had a baby or a small child at the same time. It doesn't matter which one came first, or if they did what I did and both happened right at the same time. I just think people are going to read it and go, "Oh yeah, yeah, that resonates with me." I think people are going to laugh, enjoy it, and maybe get some helpful advice out of it, because my point in writing it is to draw parallels between why running a business is exactly the same as raising a small child, and vice versa, and how we can learn lessons from our kids as well. So, how we can look at the things our 2-year-old might be doing and how they might be behaving, and then we can think, well, can I apply some of that to what I'm doing? I'm not saying have tantrums in front of your clients or anything like that, but I think there's some things you can learn from your toddlers. So I've been having a lot of fun playing around with that. There's a publishing deal on the table, but I've just really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed writing that, and the way I've developed my business over the years, certainly since the pandemic, is that I've been more selective about who I take on with clients. Do I love the person who's come to me? Do I love what they do? And am I going to enjoy crafting this copy or this content for what it is they specifically want and need? And if the answer to any of those questions is no, I don't work with them. I politely decline, and I maybe put them in contact with a colleague who I think could be a perfect fit for them. And that's given me it's given me time to work on my own stuff, whether it's writing my book, writing articles for any publications. Love writing my own blogs just for my own therapy, really. I think because writing is such a creative thing, it is therapeutic. And I don't think any of us in a creative industry would ever go against that and say it's not. If you're creating something, it is therapy. It is just absolutely beautiful and has a wonderful effect on your mental health. So I'm very much enjoying and benefit from having enough time to work on my own stuff, because I'm not taking on every project that comes my way. And I tend to find that, because I do believe a little in the law of attraction, because I'm saying no to a lot of projects and clients, all the good ones are gravitating more to me, as though to say that you're the copywriter we're supposed to work with. So I tend to get the best clients and the ones who are serious about it and throw some money behind it, because the only downside of copywriting is that largely it is massively undervalued as a skill set in the world of marketing. So you'll get people who will happily pay £20,000 for a website. Yet when it comes to having the actual words on it that are going to sell their stuff, they want it for free. They don't understand why they should pay anything, never mind hundreds or thousands, even if it's just a fraction of what they paid for the website itself.
Yeah, I'm glad you've come to that arrangement and that arrangement with yourself and that understanding. It comes up, financial value of creative activities comes up a lot with
Yes.
my guests. Um, and I'm also pleased that you touched on the therapeutic nature of the writing, that you've been able to get that kind of release from it
Yeah.
and that extra bit of mental emotional well-being that being allowing yourself to do that creative activity can give you.
It's such a boost, Claire, and as I said, I was starting all this whilst pregnant and whilst I was sick, but mentally I was absolutely fine. But when Lily arrived, I didn't have postnatal depression, thank goodness, but I did develop anxiety, something that I'd never experienced before. I didn't know what it was. It was awful, and I didn't naturally go into motherhood with ease. I wasn't overly maternal. Nowadays, she's my best friend. I can't imagine being without her. And yes, she drives me up the wall. That's what kids do. But she is absolutely everything to me. But for those first few months, I was not enjoying myself and I found everything very, very difficult. I was not in a good place. So in having time when she was with her dad, because we split it between us. Like I said, when she was born, I was still working. I didn't have that time off. I didn't have that maternity leave. I went back into work for myself. But I needed that, Claire, because I needed that distance from the baby where I could be me and I could do something that would be massively therapeutic and keep my brain ticking over and remind me that I was good at something, I had control over something, and that I could just enjoy it. I could put my feelings out there into the world in a way that I knew I could best articulate them. And so it was a lifeline for me having that. I think had I been in a normal job and had the 9 months maternity leave, I think I'd have really struggled. I think I would have been in a very, very dark and difficult place for a long, long time. So my business was my lifeline, and the fact that it was a creative one, it gave me an outlet. And I think some of my best writing for clients and for myself came out of that time because I was able to just put everything into it because I needed an outlet. But in line with what you were saying about pricing, and it comes up because creativity is not valued as it should be. People kind of look at you and go, "Oh, but you enjoy doing it, so why should I have to pay you? You enjoy it." And you're like, "No, no, that's not how it works. That's not how life works, is it? If you're good at something, you don't do it for free."
Yeah, yeah. I think artists can also feel guilty for that same reason. Because I'm enjoying myself, I shouldn't be charging people for it.
It's like footballers as well. Footballers love playing football. No doubt they've played it since they kicked out of the womb and, straight onto some kind of tiny tots pitch. They've played it all their life. They love it. They live it. They breathe it. Do you think they get to a top club like Man United and go, "Don't put us on the payroll. Love this."
Yeah. That's a really good analogy. That I really like
Yeah,
that one. I can
I do understand football after all.
yeah, see? That's brilliant. That's a really, really good point. I love it. So back to you. What about your plans for the future? And I know you're still writing the one book. Have you got ideas for future books going on in there?
God, no, no. It's been so hard. I've loved it. I've loved chipping away at the chapters and editing my own work, but it's hard. It's really hard. And when you're doing it for a client, you're sitting there thinking, "Oh, this is quite difficult. This is a stumbling block I didn't foresee, but at least I'm getting paid for it, at least that money that's coming in is paying for we're going to have a nice little weekend away or something like that." When you're doing it for yourself, you're very aware of the fact that there's no money coming into your bank
Mm.
account as a result. And certainly when it's published, authors do not get a lot of money at all. So if anyone ever thinks, "Oh, I'll be an author and I'll just live off that," doesn't work like that. You get next to nothing. But it is something I still want to do. no, there's not going to be a second book. I need to get this one right. And then I think what I'd prefer, Claire, is I'd like to be writing for publications. I would like to be writing, a column for a newspaper or a journal or a magazine. I'd like to be doing that, I think. So it's, me just putting my thoughts out in a relatively short space and, just in a shorter word count than thinking, oh my God, I've got another 50,000. Yeah, I think that's what I need to do. But no second book. Let's see me get the first one done first, Claire.
Yeah, no, I quite understand. Thank you very much for all of those insights today. How can people connect with you?
Oh, if they're a fan of LinkedIn, then that's the best place to find me. So if you did a search for me, it'd be Jo Watson, and then I've got fancy letters after my name because I work damn hard for those fancy letters. I will put them on every written piece of material I can. I'm not massively active on Facebook or anywhere like that, but my website is agoodwriteup.com. There's a mailing list on there. It's got my links to my socials on there. My blogs are on there. And I know, obviously, a lot of creative people will have heard me say LinkedIn and go, oh, no. Honestly, I think there's a massive place for creatives on LinkedIn, especially people who are making physical products. You need to get on LinkedIn because people on LinkedIn are professional. They've got money. So they want bespoke things. They want handmade things. They want things that not many people will have. So they're more likely to say, well, I'll commission an artist to paint this for me, for example. So yeah, I'd say get on there because people have got money to spend and that they want nice things that nobody else has got.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Jo, for speaking with me today. I've had a super time.
Oh, me too, Claire. Thank you so much. It's been lovely. And I know we've had this in the diary for so long, haven't we? I've looked forward to it and it has not disappointed. So thank you so much for interviewing me. I really, really appreciate being a guest.
Oh, thank you. You're so welcome. Thanks so much for listening to Creativity Found. If your podcast app has the facility, please leave a rating and review to help other people find us. On Instagram and Facebook, follow @CreativityFoundPodcast, and on Pinterest, look for @CreativityFound. And finally, don't forget to check out creativityfound.co.uk, the website connecting adults who want to find a creative outlet with the artists and crafters who can help them tap into their creativity.